Get on board, get on track, get to where you're going. And now, your EduTrainer, national insurance columnist, Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Steve Savant, your EduTrainer and coach for our edutainment workshops and our entry level into life insurance and our series. And this week, we're doing introduction to term life insurance. And of course, we used yesterday the Lincoln Benefit software. We want you to go out to their site, www.lblsales.com/ETW, and go ahead and download. Just hit, when you come to the site, go run installer so that you can go page by page with us. We're going to be using it tomorrow and Friday again. So we want to encourage you to go ahead and get out there so you can watch us page by page and illustrate with us. And remember, Lincoln Benefit Life, we chose them as the easiest software for education. So it's really good. And remember, Lincoln Benefit Life's our sponsor, an Allstate company. With Lincoln Benefit Life, and of course, where they're offering that we put a page up where you can go out, and of course it's now on the bottom of your page. Just look at the bottom because it's rather a long email. I'm sorry we haven't figured out a way to shorten it up yet, but I want to be able to send you out here because it has some really unique ideas. The Facts of Life book I've been talking about, you can get it either in the e-version or the booklet version. They have all kinds of good postcards ready to go, contact pieces for clients. You say, I don't know what to say. Well, you could order those, look at the pack, figure if that's the kind of language you want to use. They'll show you what they say. They all have nice, good Adobe PDFs. And you want to be able to look at policy review. There's some good data collection in here. If you're saying, gee, I need a fact finder, they have this all here, and it's a great provisional tool. And remember, if you're saying, gee, Steve, I don't remember where to go for all these classes. If you say, I've missed a few, or I want to go back to the beginning, which I completely, if you get into this and you say, I really need this, I really encourage you to go back to the beginning. We're about halfway through right now. And if you want to, you can go to the easiest site to remember is our site, www.brokersalliance.com. As soon as you come to our home page, just click on the red button, On Demand Videos, and go back to the beginning and look at the front end classes so that what we're talking about today makes sense. And remember, you can order our life insurance manual as well as the patented vocabulary that comes with it. It's a really excellent tool. I always have our students, when we do this live, we have them put the vocabulary right next to the manual. So if I'm talking about something, they say, Steve, I'm not really sure what that meant. You can look it up right in your vocabulary. If you want that, just order it. thebiz at brokersalliance.com. That's THEBIZ at brokersalliance.com. And we'll send you the life manual and the vocabulary. Okay, well today I want to go back in to our spreadsheets. And remember, we talked about this, and it's kind of a, what can I say? I don't want to rant on it because we're in a classroom situation today, but I want to encourage you that many of the times that we talk about guarantees, and you can go out, by the way, when we're having it, we actually have online a whole guaranteed series that talks about guaranteed term for smokers and non-smokers, guaranteed UL for smokers and non-smokers, guaranteed survivorship, and also whole life. So if you're looking for guarantees, we have a whole week show on that. Again, just hop out to our show, www.brokersalliance.com, our homepage, click on demand video, and you can download that whole show. If you're saying, I want to know about all guarantees, that's all that whole week's product line talks about. Now remember, in Tuesday's class, we were talking about super preferred, preferred plus preferred, standard plus. That was our mix. What if I actually did know what my health category was? So I'm going to take these off. And now I only have preferred. I have preferred non-smoker. But what I don't know is, I'd like to be able to, and I'm going to clean out the box, I'm going to add 10, 15, 20, and 30-year level term. I want to see all of them with all carriers in. I'm excluding, again, return of premium and ADB. So I'm not going to put ADB on, and I'm not using any riders. So I'm using, again, a 45-year-old male, $1 million worth at the preferred non-smoker, and this time I'd like to look at all the possibilities. And so what the computer is going to do now is it's going to calculate all the carriers that play in the 10, 15, 20, and 30-year spot. Again, I want to remind you, after we talked about this on Monday's class, remember, this is important to me. Doesn't matter who's number 1 or 2 or 3 sometimes, it's underwriting. And I want to make sure it's underwriting, conversion time. Will they allow me to do it within the conversion period? I also want to know, is the product good to convert to? I want to know all that because these grids are sometimes a form of advertising. And another heads up that I want to point out too. I've noticed that a few of these carriers are actually using their guaranteed UL chassis at the minimum guaranteed premiums to look very close. It looks just like term, but it actually is a UL product. So when you come out to these grids, heads up. Some of these that have these little numbers on them are all GUL. Some of them use the cash accumulation test, which is something I haven't really talked about yet, or shadow accounts, and those accounts are helping them lower their reserves so they can price into the term market. Some people find that's a problem in this because it's not really pure term, but if you bought this, you wouldn't have to convert because you'd already be on a permanent form of insurance. So you may want to look at that. It's the difference between a true 10, 15, 20, or 30-year term and having a guaranteed universal life chassis underneath it, guaranteeing 10, 15, 20, whatever their guarantees are. You'll have to look at that. If you feel like conversion isn't, you don't want to mess with it, you just want to buy a permanent contract, kind of a term. If you don't need it, you could drop it. If you want to continue to make payments, then you're going to have to look at the new payment after their GUL or their payouts. Because remember, it's going to go up a little bit. So depending upon how long you want to use it, you may want to very well use GUL. That's actually, in my view, masquerading as a term contract. Now, notice that I chose preferred this time, and now I'm looking at this contract, $1 million, 45 male, preferred non-smoker. So that's 2 levels down from the top. And what I'm doing now is I'm looking at all the carriers all the way up. And this is the end. Look at this. Again, $1,600 versus the top quoter at $765. So you're looking at the doubling. We could have 35 to 40 carriers listed on this. Some will be GUL, some will be term. But again, heads up, because I've noticed the spread is so big. We've even included in this also fraternal organizations. And those are organizations that are tightly knit societies that actually also do life insurance. So what I've done is I've included them all just to kind of give you an idea. Now notice that when we start going up 15, certain carriers change. They won in the 10-year, but now we're in the 15-year level term, and they're not winning any longer. But I also have noticed that a few of the GUL carriers that are masquerading as term, they're starting to move up a little bit. Because now you're coming into their wheelhouse, how they've priced on their no lapse, whether they're using the cash accumulated test or they're using shadow accounts. It's really interesting. And again, looking at $1,000 for 15 years versus $1,900, almost twice the amount. Again, spreadsheets, the difference is so wide that you have to, that's why I want to see them all, because really I'm going to be looking at the top 10, but I'm going to purge the top 10 based on underwriting and conversion ability. When you look at 20-year level term, now I'm at 20-year level term. Again, only preferred. I'm looking, and a whole new changing of the guard has taken place because certain carriers are pricing with much more longevity in mind. So now all of a sudden we have a reshuffle of that, and again, we have a couple of carriers that are GUL creeping up the line, and at preferred rates, if he was truly preferred, then I'm going to start looking at some of these carriers. And again, I'm going to go through my list and purge by underwriting, conversion, and product line with a small little executive summary so that my advisor knows this is what you're getting. Now, that was those numbers at 20. Now, when we get into 30-year level, the contracts, there's a few players that drop off the line because they don't want to commit to such a long duration from an actuarial point of view. But again, we've noticed players coming online here, and all of a sudden GUL is now number 5 in the rank in 30 because now you're in the wheelhouse of guaranteed universal life. So some carriers are now putting that on the term grid with a small asterisk by it, or in this case a footnote 1, so that you can understand what you're getting. Again, I want to look at all these contracts side by side and look what I can get for them. And because I have all the policy provisions on all these contracts, I know what they will or will not do. it's an interesting thing. When I'm looking at the grids, I'm not only looking for underwriting, I'm not only looking for conversion and all these things we've been talking about this week, but I want to look at their ability. Is it easy to get through underwriting? Is it going to be a hassle? Do they give all kinds of perks for us to actually place the contract in a timely manner? I just want to look at some of the service issues. Those are not quantifiable on a spreadsheet, but some of our advisors have learned, I'm sorry to say, the hard way, that certain carriers, for the little bit that they'll save, they're saving themselves a big headache. And so they want to be able to know who's going to underwrite this and who's going to run this through fairly fast. When I'm looking at these grids and I'm looking at these numbers, I want to be able to assess. After I do my purging, I'm going to be able to say, these are the carriers I'm going to knock out. Here are the remainder of those carriers, and here's who I recommend. Think about it. If you're a life insurance professional and you're recommending carriers, do you know why you're recommending them? Because they're number one on the grid, because they're usually very good in underwriting, because they have great conversion to permanent product. Their conversion periods are very benevolent. They're not just 10 years. Some of them are 15. Some of them will go through the duration of that to convert to permanent. All those little perks, all those little side issues are very important to me. Now, when I'm looking at this, I've said, okay, I like what I see. I'm not going to purge anything today for our classroom's sake. And now the computer is going ahead and it's going to say, it's going to list this all, because all the check marks you saw on the left side of the column, I selected them all. If I went through a purge, which I could do, I could say I'm not taking this carrier, this carrier, this carrier, for all those reasons I've said I've used to kind of pre-qualify the case, because I know I can't get certain information. So now that I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at all the carriers in a row, again, first, second, third, fourth place, some of these carriers that are listed in this first section of 8 carriers, 1, 2, 3 of these carriers, 4, let's see, 1, 2, 3, three of the carriers I would automatically pull off this grid because of underwriting questions. I'd still tell the client, here it is, but I don't know if I can get it. So this is important because I'm going to go through this. Now, in this regard, I'm looking only at the 10-year level, comparing it to the top companies. Now, when I do this, I ask the computer, give me 10, 15, 20, 30. This report is going to give me all of those durations. My executive summary sheet is going to say, here, and if I purge this, some of these carriers wouldn't be on here already. If I have, a lot of my advisors will say, Steve, we already know that you know this, go ahead and purge it. But some of my fiduciaries, CPAs, trust officers, and attorneys, they want to see the whole thing and have me argue why I'm not going to use these carriers that actually, in my view, advertise on the grids and actually don't perform in underwriting. But here's a good spreadsheet, because here's the bottom line. Generally, once I've purged this sheet, people are looking at the top 5 to 10 carriers. Nobody looks below that. So this is just, again, this here is just the singular issue on 10-year level. And that's why I look down here. When I'm looking at here, I'm going to go to the next one, page 2. If it'll let me do it here. And now I'm trying to page 2, 15. Now I'm looking at the bottom end of the 10. There, 15 it is. And now I'm at the 15-year, and now I'm starting to look at that. Is that pricing worth it? And again, if this was purged, I'd be able to go ahead and look at that at what I think is reasonable. Then I can page down, and now I'm sitting at my 30-year or my 20-year level, and I can then look at my 20-year spread. And again, a lot of these carriers here, the farther out I get, I've noticed that I don't have to do as much purging because most of those people don't play in the 30-year level. So here's 30-year level. In fact, actually, let me make sure. Oh, yeah, that was the number 1. On my 30-year level page here, this is excellent because, again, here's a tool that you can use to spreadsheet, show your fiduciaries or show your clients you've done your due diligence, and now you know how to talk about spreadsheets in term so that you can be intelligent about it and price the product exactly the way it's supposed to be priced.
This has been an EduTrainment Workshop, the educational division of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, and sponsored by Lincoln Benefit Life, an Allstate company.